Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. So, what are we covering today?
Well, the midterms are coming, so we're all talking about elections and immigration
Okay,
at the same time.
right.
So,
Okay, all right.
so we have
Okay,
three articles today we're going to be covering. The first one is voting in elections in Ireland, so we'll switch over to that one here. Boom, there we
okay.
go. So we're going to discuss the voting process in Ireland, who can vote, how it is they can vote, and what they do to attempt to reduce voter fraud in Ireland. And then we're going to compare that to the American system as it appears in many states right
Yeah,
now.
it'd be a very good comparing and contrast actually, because we do vote way differently
Right,
than
right.
you. Yeah, in a lot of
So,
ways.
uh, for transparency, in the United States, 23 states have submitted their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland, and it has been found that approximately 278,000 illegals are on the voter rolls, and they've requested DHS to assist them in cleaning up their voter rolls. So there are 27 states that are staunchly against it for whatever reason, and we'll go over why that is. But first things first, let's talk about how one gets to vote in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, not Northern Ireland.
Well, for the most part, you have to be an Irish citizen, which makes logical sense.
But for the
I
most
think everyone
part,
can.
hold on.
Yeah.
For the most part,
Local elections, local county councils. I presume you have the same thing over there, don't you? Local county councils.
we have cities that have city councils, and we have counties that have county boards, which would
County
be
boards. Yeah, we'll
yes.
go with that example
Okay.
for our American cousins, as they would say. Anyone living in that county or that district of a county, everyone living there can vote for the local county council elections. Okay?
Okay.
So that's Irish citizens, non-Irish citizens, everyone who's registered with the local county council with their address, name, address, and so on can vote for the local county councils. But local county councils don't have as much power as you would think. Now, when it comes to our national elections, you have to be an Irish citizen, a full Irish citizen. Because But for all voting in Ireland, you get a polling card in the post. So you have to go to your local school or local polling station, wherever it may be. Bring your polling card with you, as well as a photographic ID, either driving license, PPS card, passport, so on.
To
Has to be
ensure, wait,
proper.
wait, is this to ensure you're a citizen before you vote in an Irish election that is federal in nature?
It's to verify that the name, the picture, and the address match on the polling card, and so on. Yes.
Oh, to make sure you are who you say you are. You are a citizen, and you're going to cast a vote in that election to attempt to reduce the fraud. I like it.
Yes.
Like it.
Yes. Now, that's for Dáil and for European representatives and so on. Now, the Senate, the Seanad, is voted differently, but
Okay.
the main power you have for in Ireland will go with Dáil. It's probably the easiest for people to
Okay.
understand.
How is the Shannat elected?
That's usually through different voting mechanism, but they more comment on a law than actually affect the law.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Right.
They're more of a talking shop is the best way I could describe them.
Okay. So the Dáil casts the votes to pass referendums and bills and put things
And
into
bills
law.
and budgets and so on. The main meat and bones of our
Got it.
legal
And then
system.
the
Yes.
Shannat reviews it to ensure it is in line with the Irish Constitution.
Yeah, or something like that, or just to, I would say, give out about it sometimes. It depends on the Seanad is interesting because they're usually voting by university graduates and so on. There's a different voting block there.
Okay.
They're usually just a glorified talking shop, really.
Got it. Okay.
There was a talk a couple of years. There was a couple of talks. There was talks over the years of just getting rid of the Seanad, really, because it didn't serve any major and meaningful purpose.
Okay. So eligibility to vote in Ireland, it says to be eligible to vote, you must be at least 18 years of age and ordinarily resident in Ireland. Citizenship determines the electoral events in which a person may vote. Okay. They vote for the Dáil and local elections, as well as European Parliament and whoever your mayor is for your city and certain referendums. Okay.
The mayor is usually voted by the county council.
Okay.
So the people in the county council vote for the mayor, not necessarily the people in the county. If that makes sense. Every county is a
right. So
different way.
This one is from the direction of the county of Limerick. So if you are a citizen in Limerick, you can vote for the Dáil. the Shonnet, depending upon what that mechanism is, presidential elections, local elections, European Parliament elections, and the mayoral election in your county. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every county is a bit different when it comes to that kind of thing.
Oh,
The British citizen thing, I see people are going to probably ask in the comments about that. The British citizens is for Northern Ireland.
Those
so
6
they can
counties.
vote. They can, yeah. So we technically give them the vote.
Okay.
As well, because they're all part of Ireland.
Right. And what's that word again? We talked about it and I still couldn't say it. What is it?
Commission. Sorry for laughing. Really sorry for laughing. Yeah, don't worry about it. We're not going to get you to murder that one.
No, well, say it. So you were laughing so much I couldn't hear it. Say it again.
All right. On. Ian. Commish. Atonsha.
Atonsha. Okay.
Basically, it's our election commissioner.
Okay, and they're the ones that review and ensure the validity of.
You make sure
the
integrity of all our votes and so on. We very rarely have problems with our elections over here. Very rarely, because it's just probably the way we have it set up as well. Where people physically have to turn up with ID.
Yeah, you have to prove you're an Irish citizen with a picture ID. That sounds heavenly, actually.
We do actually have a mechanism of people voting abroad, as you would call them, mail-in ballots. We do have that mechanism in place. So, say Irish citizens can vote in the local elections if they're abroad by getting onto the local Irish embassy or the consulate, so on. Active service members abroad can vote, obviously, the same way as well. But that's a minute part of our overall election results, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I understand. All right.
Yeah.
So we've established that in Ireland, you need to be a citizen to vote in federal elections and for certain referendums. But if you live in the area, you can vote for county council type stuff, which seems a little dicey at this point, based on the amount of people that they've shoved into certain places. It seems like they could have a very significant voting block, and they could very seriously change the direction and the culture of an area just by dint of having X amount of people.
Well, the most they could affect being non-citizens in Ireland would be our local county council elections. Now, local county councils don't have much power overall. They'll have their local local budget and stuff like that. But that is where the Dáil or the local TD would step in and say, look, this county council has gone off the rails, and the government will crack down on them straight away.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
so there's checks and balances from the Dáil and from the local TD.
Yes, okay. Obviously, because a certain amount of money comes from the general state coffers into a lot of these counties.
Right, so then they can be regulated by the Dáil because they are dispersing the funds. They have control of the purse.
Yes, okay. I know the local tax, say like property tax and so on, and rates will go into the local county, you would say, coffers, but
makes sense.
The vast majority comes from the state.
Sounds good. All right, so let us talk about the United States. So the Trump administration asked Supreme Court to clear the way for new mail-in voting restrictions. All right. So the Trump administration on Monday asked the Supreme Court to allow it to fully implement an executive order signed by President Donald Trump that seeks to impose additional restrictions on mail-in voting. U.S. Solicitor General D. John Sauer called an order by a federal judge in Massachusetts that paused portions of the order in 23 states and the District of Columbia. So 27 states have actually submitted and 23 states have not, also to include the District of Columbia. And he called it extraordinary, and he argued that it flouts settled doctrines governing when courts can weigh in on a dispute. Sauer also asked the court to issue an immediate administrative stay, an order that temporarily puts the lower court's order on hold while the justices consider the government's request. So there are some issues with the validity of certain kinds of mail-in ballots in states that have ballot harvesting and the like, because there's a lack of a chain of custody on the ballot itself. Therefore, what's happening is the United States Postal Service is then committing fraud by taking ballots from illegals and processing them and sending them to the election places where they need to go to be counted, right? So you can't force the United States Postal Service to act fraudulently, knowingly, right? So if you are knowingly casting a ballot and you're putting it in a box it is going to be mailed by the post, by the United States Postal Service, which means you are forcing the United States Postal Service to commit fraud, which is illegal. So what they're saying is they want barcodes and validation of the voter rolls to ensure that citizens are voting and that no non-citizens are voting. Understanding we're never going to get to zero for voter fraud. That's not going to happen, but getting it down, right? Because even the appearance of illegitimacy is not appropriate for an election, right? Just not appropriate at all.
Yeah. And do you think that it will be in place before November?
The executive order has already been signed, and a lower court in Massachusetts decided they wanted to weigh in, and it generally jammed up 23 states and the District of Columbia, which it shouldn't do. So the courts are supposed to adjudicate individual issues that come to them, but what they're doing is what is functioning as a universal injunction and saying, well, these states just don't want us, so they're not gonna. Right?
Okay.
There's nothing of substance. It's just I don't like it, so we're not gonna. And that's not how that's supposed to work, right? It's supposed to be in play until it's adjudicated. But what they've
what
done,
happened if the states just ignore the executive order?
Then a lot of their votes may not count at all. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had a frog in my throat. So if they just choose to ignore the executive order, but they need a judgment from a court that says that it's okay for them to ignore it. They can't just ignore it. Where I am in California, they've made a lot of adjustments to the election process because of the executive order. Right? Even in California, they're trying to do what they can, except they're choosing not to submit their voter rolls because we have such an excess. So in the states, the 27 states that submitted their documentation to the Department of Homeland, the 278,000 votes were found, or 278,000 individuals.
That works out of what? About 10,000 per state?
About 10,000 per state, yeah. But understand that some of these elections are being decided by less than 1,000 votes, right? And if you take those 12,000 votes, it's actually doubled because all of the illegal votes knock out a citizen's vote. So that's 20,000 votes. And when the election's down to 1,000 votes or less than 1,000 votes, that's a problem.
Can we see what 23 states handed up their voter polls?
I would have to pull that up. Let me go and pull that up. States submitted their voter.
That'd be interesting for people as well, I think.
DHS. We'll actually take this AI summary. Okay, here we go. It's all these right here, and we'll make it real big. So Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia. Okay, there's California, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas.
So California did hand them up.
Well, they did, except they were incomplete.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. They were reviewed, and DHS said you have 30 million people registered to vote, but why do we only have this amount, right? So that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, those are the 23 states. So, but that's still a bit of a problem, right?
What? Okay, so how many people is in Alabama, for instance? Out of curiosity, we'll go with the first one on the list there.
Alabama.
We're going to pick an Alabama there for a few minutes. Even though I heard it's got really nice food down there, but apparently.
5,193,088. So roughly your population in Ireland.
Or so, about 10,000, between 10 to 12,000 people are voted legally, say, in Alabama.
Right, but of the 5,193,000, not all of them can vote. They're either minors or they're incarcerated.
Oh yeah,
they're not registered to vote because they just chose not to.
Is that up there anywhere? No, it's not, is it?
Well, let us look that up as well.
Yeah, we're just going to pick an Alabama because it's the first one on the list. Just curious how widespread this problem is actually.
Alabama registered voters. Let's see what the AI has to say. How many? I gotta put how many. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you have to be very specific when it comes to search engines. Because sometimes they just go off on a magical adventure. There we go. I get something up here now.
Nope. Doesn't want to give me the numbers.
Okay.
3.8 million. There we go.
3.8 million. So 12,000. So what? Less than 0.23%. Okay.
Right, but understand they're also concentrated in areas where they are as well. So it tends to throw off numbers.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is the overall voting block, say in Alabama, we're just going to use Alabama as an example. It's 0.2, 0.3%. Okay. Right.
Right, but in a statewide election that is decided, say, for governor or for a senator, and the difference in votes is less than 1,000, then the 20,000 votes is going to have a very huge impact.
Well, let's get the figures right. About 5,000 on average.
Right, but again, it's 12,000. We'll say it's 12,000, but then every vote from someone who should not be voting in that election knocks out the vote of an individual who's
obviously,
a citizen.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. I'm just saying. But say we're going to use Alabama again. Say their last governor race. Can we bring up Alabama's last governor race there, for an example?
We can do that.
Yeah. Let's see what the difference in voting there was. See how close, how much of a difference those 12,000 would have made.
Candidates in Alabama.
Don't worry, we'll cut all this out in post, by the way.
Nah, we don't have to cut all this out in post. We just keep it in Alabama.
Okay.
For their
governor.
I gotta learn how to spell
last governor election.
See how it turns out. Yeah, I want you to Alabama governor primary results 2026. We'll do 2022.
26. Is there 2026 one there?
They just had their primary.
Okay, so let's go with the last one. Okay.
Okay, right. So approximately 1.5 million votes cast. The election featured incumbent governor Kay Ivey and her opponent. Kay Ivey received about 60%, and the voter turnout was approximately 40% of all voters. So 60% to 40% in that state, it didn't seem to make a difference in Alabama. But in other states, especially like Arizona and stuff like that, which I believe is considered a purple state because they can't figure out what team they want to play for, it's a lot closer.
Yeah, they're always been a flip-floppy state.
Yep. So, but that's just to show one state, right? And that state, looks like it didn't make a difference, but it will make a difference in other places.
By the way, I've seen a lot of governor races over there, and they're usually won either way by a big margin, if you know what I'm trying to say, in a lot of ways.
Right. So
it's just like it's not as big as the house is on fire from that they're kind of trying to make it out to be. Because when I initially heard about all this voter fraud, I thought it was a bigger issue.
Well, if my vote is cast aside, then I think it's a really big issue.
Oh, yeah, but I'm talking about the overall integrity of your democracy.
For sure. See here. Oh, this one's really big.
There we go.
Oh, wow. Why am I getting Swiss federal? That's funny.
Right. Let's get back to the main point, then, as they would say. We're going to have to beaten track. Small bit.
That's all right.
But it's just interesting to see that. I know he's trying to crack down a mail-in ballots. He wants to kind of flip over to the system that we have. Now, would the United States be capable of flipping over to a system like ours?
1,000%. And here's why. It's because we all have cell phones. That's why. Because we have cell phones and we can have Teams meetings and all these other kind of meetings, and we can secure banking transactions. We can secure all kinds of other transactions. We could, in fact, secure our elections because cell phones can have secure election software on them, like they can have secure banking software on them.
Well, I know there was a bit of trouble with your voting machines over the years being hacked into by Russian and Chinese hackers and stuff like that.
So a few years ago, there was an individual who actually challenged that because we're not supposed to be using those systems in the United States.
Okay.
Right.
So
I don't know where that went.
You're still, by the way, I know it was challenged, but do you still use them?
The voting machines, yeah.
Okay, right.
So anyway,
Now,
so
as I say, if you're willing to, if you can vote out, send out all these mail-in ballots, why not just swap them over for polling cards? Telling you,
right, okay,
right,
so
you have to go down, you're going to have to vote here on a Thursday between 10 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening on this date. That's it. Is that a possible thing for people to do?
yes, well, but they'd be called a mock ballot, or we call them mock ballots. And then you would take your mock ballot in, you would compare the mock ballot to the ballot you've received to vote on, and then you would, once you've confirmed that yes, this is your correct ballot for your
And
city,
obviously
county.
you bring your photographic ID and so
Right.
on.
Obviously,
But
you
you
bring
think
your
that,
photographic ID.
but obviously, all those mechanisms are not going to be in place by November. Let's call it a spade. All these mechanisms that he's talking about in executive orders, they're not going to be in place. What, by November? I doubt it.
They
Even
could
if
be. Oh no, they absolutely could be.
No, they could if they pushed it, if they really pushed it.
Right.
But
If they
it's
wanted,
obviously
right.
going to be obviously there's going to be challenges. There'll be other things
Right.
going
If
on.
they wanted to be compliant to ensure that the integrity of the election was at least better. So listen to this one right here. Listen to this right here. A group of 23 states in the District of Columbia, led by California, went to federal court in Massachusetts to challenge the implementation of the order. Why didn't California go to California to do this? They argued that the order conflicts with the provisions of the...
I can answer that question. It's called safety in numbers. If California goes on their own, there'll be uproar.
Oh, no, I don't mind if they go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Provided
that, obviously, where was the middle point for those 23 states?
If California is leading the charge, then California should do it in California. They argued that the order conflicts with provisions of the Constitution that give states the power to determine voter eligibility and to set the times, place, and manner of holding congressional elections, which is fine, except that they're not verifying the citizenship of the voters, and they're not verifying the roles, right? They're not, the eligibility should be citizens, but they're not, because in California, they give government IDs to individuals who are not citizens. And when they do that, they give them the opportunity to register to be in a political party.
Yeah,
right?
but
Libertarian, Republican, Democrat.
Let's call it a spade. Look, California is always going to be a blue state. It's always going to vote mainly Democratic for the most part. We all know that, really.
Well, yeah, the state assembly and the Senate is a supermajority of Democrats. Yes.
Yeah, let's say that it's going to be a blue state for all the time. But do you think this is about protecting votes, or is it about hoping that I have something to fall back on if the Republicans get hammered in November?
No, the elections need to ensure their integrity. It's been an issue for a long time, but in the last administration, they didn't care about it. This administration cares about it. And I think anybody who votes in a system should care about the integrity of the elections.
Okay, let's talk. Okay, let's say George Bush, Obama. Did they care about it?
They all, at the time, they were actually voting appropriately.
Okay, so when was the mail-in ballots? When did the mail-in ballots start in California, for example?
I believe 2013 massively, and then shortly after that, 2018, 2019, they started a ballot harvesting system.
So that was Joe and Obama's administration, wasn't
it? On through there, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And then it was, I believe, Jerry Brown was the governor of California at the time.
Yeah, and did Obama challenge them at the time?
No.
Did it become a main thing, say, in 2016 and 2020?
It wasn't until the 2020 election when the Republicans got really, really uptight about it. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that an extra set of millions of people happened to vote in the 2020 election that hadn't ever voted before. The numbers were like wildly out of control.
That's because I remember the Republicans did a big investigation after it and found the main swing vote at the time in the 2020 election was actually young people who just newly came on at that time and just wanted to vote for something different. I know they were trying to look for an answer why certain people lost the 2020 election.
Right, but then in the 2024 election, the numbers went back down to the average of the 3 or 4 before.
Because young people are losing their jobs, there was a lot of things going on, so they voted for something different again. And that's what happens, by the way. Young people, say the age, say, between 18 and 30, that demographic, have a tendency to kind of flip their votes around the place. That's why they're always. That's why that's why most politicians try to target that kind of swing vote more than guys who are older who are already set in their ways.
Oh, that feels like a lot of
that's in general. That's in general.
And I understand your conjecture, but that still doesn't alleviate the fact that the integrity of the elections is way off, especially in places that have ballot harvesting where there's no chain of custody on the ballot.
What I'm trying to say is, it's only been a problem for 2 administrations: this present one and the 2016 one. Every other administration seems to had. I didn't see any headlines about it or, grandstanding about it whatsoever.
Right, but that's because a lot of states changed their laws to allow things like ballot harvesting, which disallow an appropriate chain of custody for submitted ballots. Like in California, they literally mail out all the 30 million ballots to all the voters, and at which point anyone can take your ballot and put it into a ballot box. But once it leaves my hand and I hand it to someone, or they come to my house and ask for it, hey, can I get your ballot so I can drop it in the box? There's no chain of custody there. I don't know what you've done with my ballot once I hand it to you. If I put it in a ballot box myself, I'm pretty sure it's going to go where it's supposed to go and it's good. Go ahead.
But what about the rest of the states in the union?
They're not protecting their voter rolls either.
So, but pretty obviously, a lot of them handed them in, including California, by the way. I'm just wondering, is it a big issue because of the midterms coming up, or what I'm trying to say is,
right? I
think it's going to be. I think, unfortunately, that if you start messing with your democratic systems, they can be abused in other ways.
How would you feel if your vote was individually removed because someone illegal voted in an election in Ireland?
But we have a different system.
But no, that's not what I asked. I asked, how would you feel if your vote was discounted because someone who was illegal voted?
I wouldn't like it.
Right. I don't like it either as an individual.
But I know states are changing, and they are changing around.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a quick fix, obviously. But it's when you start messing with systems like this without a plan, by the way, which, by the way, this guy does not have a plan how he's going to fix it. If you start messing with your democratic systems without a plan,
hold on. The SAVE Act specifically identifies that you need to be a citizen and show identification of citizenship, not just a government-issued ID, but one that shows you are, in fact, a citizen of the United States of America. That's what the SAVE Act is for.
That's for a passport. You have to bring your passport, or you have to bring your
birth certificate and ID. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
An ID 100%. And all that kind of stuff. Okay. That's
and you bring it to a place that says, yes, I have verified you are you. At which point, then you can use your government-issued ID because you've been verified, right? So we have a certain kind of ID in the United States called a real ID that's supposed to check that. So our real IDs are supposed to be the thing that was the check and balance on that, except the real IDs have now been issued to non-citizens in California, specifically like commercial driver's license holders whose CDLs are not really appreciated in other states now because we have people who have licenses like that who can't read English effectively, so they can't read signs, right?
But what is Trump's plan? So is to bring in the SAFE Act, which sounds like a good idea, by the way. Which, by the way, most nations on the planet have done.
Right.
Is he going to use a polling card system? I presume that's the only safe way of doing it, really.
Well, you probably send out mock ballots, and then the people would bring their mock ballots in, and they would
go down and they exchange that for a real ballot, which we do over here, and so on.
Well, you take it into the booth with you to vote, so you can see where you've done your research on referendums, bills, propositions.
You're telling me people can't kind of remember who they voted for from when they get the mock ballot to when they get the physical ballot?
You haven't seen our ballots. Our ballots will sometimes have 80 or 90 things to vote for.
So, yeah, we have crazy things over here too. And just saying that I kind of give people a bit more, a bit more common sense. But okay. And so is he going to put all these systems in place?
Well, the thing is, the state should already have a system where the integrity of the vote is checked. But because all of the illegals that are on the voter rolls, and in fact, people who have moved from, say, California to Texas, or from Ohio to Delaware, or Rhode Island to Florida, whatever, they're not being removed from the voter roll from the place where they were, and they're staying on that voter roll, and then also voting in the new place where they've gone. Right.
Yeah.
And
But
then
is this going to really affect November, do you think? If he doesn't sort this out?
It should. It should. Because the United States Postal Service cannot be forced without an appropriate chain of custody to send a ballot anywhere. Because if the United States Postal Service can't verify it's a citizen, then what's happening is then the United States Postal Service is complicit in committing fraud by sending ballots that are votes from those who are not allowed to vote in the system.
Okay.
Right. So you can't perpetrate that fraud on the federal government. And if you don't have a system that verifies that only citizens are voting as best you can, then what you're saying is the federal government is now complicit in committing fraud by moving ballots that are cast by those who should not be casting ballots.
Okay. So let's look into the future in the November election. Now, in the November election, say if things go very well for the Republicans, would this still be a thing?
Yes.
Or would he move on to something else, do you think?
100% a thing. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed countrywide.
Countrywide. And that process obviously going to take a lot more time than what they have from now to November, I'll be honest.
Right. But since 2013, lots of states have changed things to make it so you can't verify, you cannot check the validity of, and there is no chain of custody that's appropriate for those ballots when they're cast.
If that's the case, how did Trump get elected in 2016? If all this massive fraud was going on?
Because at that point, they were still in the process of changing a lot of laws.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that why you think he lost is that why people think he lost the 2020 election because of this voter fraud?
It's possible. Some of the states were super, super close.
But if that's the case, how did he get elected again this time?
Because of his platform of we need to remove illegals and we need to ensure the integrity of our elections and lots of other things. Not only that, his opponent said, I'll tell you what my platform is when I get elected. Well, Trump had a platform.
Yeah, obviously, because Kamala Harris had a snowball chance in hell of winning an election in less than 100 days. That was
right. Well, and the DNC also.
The Democrats I'll be honest, Democrats shot themselves in the foot.
Big time.
It would have been a lot cleaner run if the Democrats had not put up Biden. I'll be honest with you. That was the biggest mistake the Democrats ever did, putting up Biden, because everyone knew in less than 2 years into his term that he wasn't, he was showing his age, is the nicest way to put it.
Right. He wasn't as functional as he could have been. So, all right. So there was a divided panel in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. They turned down the government's request to intervene. If the order were to take effect for the elections taking place in the fall, the majority wrote it would sow confusion and threaten disenfranchisement of many eligible voters. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But
basically what the court's trying to say is it's too close to the race, lads.
Yeah, it's too close. But do it anyway.
We'll have a look at it the next time around. Between now and the next time,
it should be do it anyway. You have the resources in your states to do this.
Look, states have their own rights too. Let's keep that clear.
Right,
because
but they don't have
in fairness to the United States, he just spent a couple of years getting rid of your last king, and that's why there's a separation of powers.
Well, that was the 1700s, dude. Come on.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, I think there's a reason why states do have a right to govern themselves too. I know there is an overarching executive branch, but still, states should have the right to do what states want to do as well.
Right. So John Sauer then said, so the Trump administration then came to the Supreme Court on Monday, asking the justices to step in. Sauer argued that the courts should not yet consider the state's lawsuit because the agencies haven't yet decided how they will implement the order. So the states are just saying, this is really hard. We don't want to. And John Sauer said, General Sauer's like, then show us why it's hard. Right. But to immediately can it and then force a stay is not the way that should have gone. There should have been no preliminary injunction issued by the First District Court of Appeals. Should have happened.
I think what the judges are trying to do is, I think in a lot of ways they're trying to play devil's advocate, saying, okay, we understand that you don't want to do it, and I understand it'd be hard for you to do it. And they're trying to find a way of, it's probably a bit too close to the race at the moment, and put all these mechanisms in place, which I don't think is true either. I think a lot of states are just going to drag their heels in it.
Of course they will.
Just for the sake of dragging their heels in it.
Right. Oh, that was Amy Howe, founder and reporter from SCOTUS blog. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in the show notes so you guys will be able to see it. So
yeah.
All right. So there's a Michigan voter Michigan voter registration investigation, China's acquisition of exploitation of American voter data, and then this one right here. So the non-citizen states voter rolls, which was the most important part of this. According to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified probably 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher. Yet even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed to vote on the active voter rolls. And yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. So
now, the only foreign government that boasted multiple times about actually physically hacking into your voter rolls and physically hacking into and boasted about interfering in your last couple of elections has been Russia, which I haven't seen being mentioned here.
Right. I understand that.
China, okay, looked at your voter rolls. I can look at your voter rolls, by the way, from my computer in Ireland. They're open source, by the way. That's not rocket science.
Right, but
anybody with a computer can do it.
The other issue we're having is we have birthright citizenship. So people are born here, they're raised in another country, and then they come back here at 18 or 19 after completely being acculturated into a different society, right? So they're not necessarily going to have the needs, wants, and desires and the furtherance of this union in their mind as the thing we need to be handling as a country, right?
Right. Okay. You have dual citizenship as well. Well, we don't have birthright citizenship anymore in Ireland, so strange that you still have.
We have some dual citizenship. It's not a significant number. The biggest one I think we have is those who are Israeli citizens as well as United States citizens. And I'm so glad that Doubting Thomas isn't here because he would give us an earful. Ooh,
because for the most part, Israelis would probably vote for Israeli interest over the United States, wouldn't they?
Well, anybody who's a dual citizen would more than likely, if it's Germany
vote for their
Israel
own,
or
whoever
France
they identify, whatever country they identify most with, they'll probably vote in the best interest of.
Of course. That's why when you have people in the system who are only takers and don't contribute anything, are going to continue to vote to take. It's the same thought process.
And would Israelis make up dual citizens? Would they make up a large voting bloc in the United States?
No, but they would make up a significant portion of the voting bloc in the District of Columbia, because dual citizens are generally, if they're abroad, they vote in the District of Columbia. So
okay, and that's who they and would that affect your elections anyway?
Yeah, the Electoral College for the District of Columbia has 3 votes. So they comprise a pretty decent amount of the votes in the District of Columbia. So they could influence 3 Electoral College votes pretty severely.
And should Israelis have dual citizenship like that?
It's the law. I don't have an opinion on that one really either way. I would prefer them to
because
not.
If they're going to get rid of dual citizenship, which by the way Trump is talking about at the moment, do you think that should be a blanket across the board?
Yes.
Either you're an American citizen or you're a citizen of another country, and that's it.
Yes.
Do you think they should get rid of that?
100%. Yep.
They should have that across the board.
Yeah.
Because then that would kind of free up the bias of certain groups, wouldn't it?
Of course it would. Then you'll be voting in the interests of the United States and not the interests of a third party.
Yeah. So. I think that would clear up a lot of, say, especially if Doubting Thomas is here, you probably agree with me, that they shouldn't use either a citizen of one country.
He would be more than just a little vehement. He'd be more than just a little vehement about it.
Yes, so. Yes.
All right, Patrick.
That's one of the few things myself and Doubting Thomas actually agree on, believe it or not.
For sure,
that you were a citizen of one country or a citizen of another country.
Yeah, pick one.
I understand the idea around dual citizenship, but if you're living and operating in the United States, you should be voting for the United States. If you're living and operating in Germany,
Right.
you should be living and voting in Germany. If you're,
100%.
that's my thinking around it.
Yep.
Because when you have a dual identity like that, you're going to vote for your home country's best interest, not necessarily the United States.
You can't effectively,
usually
yeah,
what-
you cannot effectively serve two masters in that way, for sure.
No.
So.
No.
All right, Patrick, anything else for the good of the people?
No, actually, a very interesting discussion. It's interesting to see that that you're finally kind of seeing the light of the rest of the world when it comes to your voting.
Oh,
It is interesting that you're finally getting rid of the silliness that you have over there.
right.
And
And
join the rest of the modern world.
I'm keeping the whole episode in, even when you're talking about how we're going to fix this in post. That's fine. Sometimes people need to see the nuts and the bolts before the editing process. So I think that's actually going to be a good thing for this episode. So if you have nothing further, do you have nothing further?
Nope, that's it.
We're good. All right. For Patrick McCallum, I'm Alex Johansson. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, and help us beat the algorithm. We're the A&P Gents, and we are